I am God to my problems are not God to me. That is going to be the topic of this video today, guys. And we're going to dive further into what that means and how you should be looking at that quote, okay? And that's a quote from Reverend Ike, by the way, that, you know, I love using. I love, you know, earlier on in my journey, I love coming back to that, right? Because it makes the things that scare you so much smaller. So as you already know, good morning. And if you're watching this in the afternoon or evening, you know, good evening, good afternoon to you guys. So as you know, I'm Michael from EmbodyingTheState.com, and we're just going to dive right into this, okay? So that quote that I shared with you, remember, I am God to my problems are not God to me. Let's dive into that. What does that mean to you, right? And here's what it means to me. It means that I am the cause of everything, and that I should not be worshiping the outside circumstances, right? I should not be looking outside with my eyes and then letting that affect how I feel about myself, letting that change how, you know, I view my world, right? Because the second you start looking at your 3D and you start letting it affect how you feel on the inside, you are in essence manifesting more of that, right? Manifesting more lag, manifesting more problems that bother you. And logically, does that make sense? If you want to be manifesting change and the thing you want, whether it's SP, whether it's money, whether it's, you know, health, whatever it is you want, right? Does it make sense to be doing that if you understand that your inner world becomes your outer world? And the answer is no, right? So, you know, to kind of go even deeper into it, there's a it's not a quote, it's a core concept, I call it, on my workshop, right? And I'll share some of it with you guys. And this core concept teaches, you know, and some of you may have heard me talk about this in the past, but it teaches that pretty much the way I want you guys to view life, right, is just that there's two worlds, right? I want you to recognize that there's two worlds that you really focus on, right? It's either your inner world or your outer world, right? And I use, you know, like numbers and letters to kind of prioritize this. So your inner world is number one, right? So in other words, that's the priority. Inner world is number one, it's your world one, right? And outer world is number two, priority number two, right? And you have to realize and really live your life with the understanding that world number two is a reflection of what you do in world number one. In other words, what you do on the inside is going to be the thing that's on the outside. So moving forward, now that you understand this, now that you know this, right? Does it make sense logically? And I love using logic and manifesting because a lot of times you hear that you shouldn't use it. You know, logic and manifesting don't go hand in hand, but I have a different approach, right? So knowing that what you do on the inside here in your imagination, what you feel to be true about yourself, gets reflected to your outer world and grants you those experiences that mirror those feelings, that assumption, right? Those beliefs. Does it make sense now to be making a God out of your problems instead of viewing yourself as the God to your problems, right? And the answer is no, it doesn't make sense, right? So for example, if you want an SP and the SP has now a third party, does it make sense now that now that you want your SP and you've decided, okay, I'm going to manifest SP, does it make sense that now every single time you think about them, you are going to go straight to thinking of the third party and worrying about it, right? Looking at them from the lens, from the perspective of, I'm single and they're with someone else and I just want them so bad. And then knowing that your inner world becomes your outer world, does that make sense to continue doing that? And the answer is no. It's okay to understand and to be aware of the things you don't like. It's okay to see your 3D and to not like it. What's not okay is when you start worshiping your 3D, when now that third party or whatever the concern may be, whatever circumstance in front of you is bothering you, and you're choosing to let that affect how you feel. It dictates how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your power, how you feel about your future that's to come. That's where the problem is, because remember, inner world is priority number one. Outer world is priority number two. So if you understand and you live by the core concept of the understanding that what you do on the inside eventually has to be changed, in other words, given to you on the outside, right? Your 3D has to conform. Then it doesn't make sense to dominantly return to the problem, right? As Neville says, if you wish to make a problem go away, you know, you have to take the awareness off of the problem. And that's how you let things, quote unquote, wither and die, as Neville says, right? And remember, I tell all my clients all the time that what you do on the inside is always going to be your outside. And what you give awareness to is the same thing as giving water, right? So if I continue to return to the awareness of a third party, then I'm watering that seed and I'm letting that plant grow and grow and grow and stay in my 3D and to root itself into my 3D, right? And that's not what you want to be doing. That's not what you should be doing, right? You can't know the law and then worship your 3D, right? You can't know the law and make God out of your problems. You can't worship your problems. It makes no sense, right? And this video is inspired because so many of my recent clients come to me in emergencies, right? They've come to me in their worst moments and panicking. And of course, I enjoy that by the end of every single call, I'm yet to have one person that I end a call with where they're not feeling confident now and inspired and feeling confident in other words, the process and the journey that they have to take now, right? And that's why I love sharing, the law with you guys, because my job is to not manifest for you. My job is to not do the work for you. My job is to just make you recognize who you are. It's to show you who you are and your power, right? And whenever I work with anyone and they come to me in their worst moments, it's because they're worshiping the 3D. And that's why this video is being made, because I know there's a lot of people that I don't work with, but that would benefit from this. So just keep it in mind, guys. You have to live with the understanding, and in the back of your head, I want you to carry the idea of the core concept that I always tell people, right? That your inner world has to be reflected into your outer world, right? That your outer world is only the reflection of what you do in here, what you believe to be true, what you return to as fact, what you identify with the most, right? And that's why I tell people to start practicing returning to the state. That's why I tell people to embody the state of having the solutions, of having, in other words, the reality where they don't have the problems, right? Because it's not about pretending that your 3D has changed. It's about looking at your 3D and smiling and being indifferent about it, because you understand that priority number one, in other words, your inner world, is going to change everything on the outside, because you are choosing to be disciplined and live by the law. So therefore, it has to be given to you, right? And your only job is to not worry about the time and the length that it takes, and to just enjoy the journey, smell the roses, right? If something bothers you, remind yourself, I am God to my problems. My problems are not God to me. And say that to yourself if you need to, right? Maybe write it down on your phone and read it whenever you're feeling down, right? And really contemplate what those words mean. And I tell people, it's like, think of your little, that problem as this little cartoon. And it has like a little pitchfork and it's trying to intimidate you, right? And imagine yourself as a giant, right? In comparison to this tiny little thing with a pitchfork, little cartoon that's trying to bring you down, right? Would you look at that little thing that's trying to intimidate you, and would you genuinely, if you were an actual giant, would you genuinely be afraid of this little thing? No, right? You would just look at it and be like, like, what are you doing, right? You'd just laugh, and you wouldn't take it serious, because you understand it can't affect you. And that's the same thing with the law, right? When you know the law, you realize nothing can be permanent unless you allow it to be permanent. It's why I tell people all the time that you have to take your awareness off the problem, right? As Neville says, when you want to make something go away, you take the awareness off it and it withers and dies. And that's why I always talk about that quote, what Neville says on that topic, because you can't wake up every day and then constantly focus on the problem and then expect a different outcome just by returning to a state a couple times, but then you're in the state dominantly of being aware of the problem, right? Your awareness is water that gives life. So every time you start thinking and worrying about the third party, about the lack of money, about the promotion you're not getting, the new job, whatever it may be, you are in essence grabbing your watering can, and you as the gardener are then watering that plant, and you're securing it into your life. You're letting it, root itself. And your job is to focus on the solutions, right? It's, what do you want out of life? What does that look like? But more importantly, how would it feel if this was actually a reality? And that's what you return to, right? That is when you start becoming God to your problems. And that's why I share you that quote from Reverend Ike that I love so much, because it's so true. You have to remind yourself that you are literally, to your problems, you are God, because everything is just the effect, right? You are the cause, and the outside is just the effect. So when you realize there's nothing to fear, right? And remember, you can create the good or bad. You create heaven or hell on earth. So it's up to you, guys. Are you going to create heaven or hell on earth? Because remember, everything exists, the good and the bad. And whatever you give your awareness to repeatedly, whatever you start feeling with conviction, whatever you start accepting as fact, is going to be your outer reflection. So logically, does it make sense that if you now want to have your third party out of the way, but then you're always worrying about them, but then you're expecting the better result? Like, that doesn't make sense, right? And I always repeat these things for you guys to kind of get into your head, right? And a lot of the people that come to me, especially in their darkest moments, because it's very rare that someone comes to you, especially in my position, and they're already, they're just there to have a chat or to just ask certain questions. Most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, it's people that are usually in their darkest moments, or at least in bad spots, right? So I want you guys to really understand, it's not about trusting your outside more than your inside. You have to flip that. You have to start trusting your inside more than your outside. It does not make sense logically, understanding the law and knowing that your inner world becomes your outer, but then focusing on the bad in your inner world and then being upset that the outer is not changing. Like, you can't do that and then get upset and wonder, why is it not happening? Why is it not here? But your everyday awareness is that nothing has changed and that you are still the same person, and you're only returning to a state a couple times, but you're more so in the state of lack, like I mentioned, right? So none of that makes sense. Your job is to understand, okay, I'm not happy with my 3D. This thing right here is making me panic. It's making me spiral or feel bad. Why do I feel bad? And I tell people all the time, who is judging that? Who is judging your 3D? Is it me making you feel bad? Is it your neighbor or your family or friends or SP or whatever? No, it's you. Because even if your SP tells you or your boss tells you, I don't want you, right? Get out of here, right? I'm never gonna hire you again. Or your SP tells you, I'm done with you, I wanna move on, right? In that moment, who is judging what is being said to you? And I really want you to contemplate that. Who is judging that? And the answer is you, right? Remember, when you hear things from your 3D and you see things in your 3D, it has to get filtered by you, right? It has to go through your brain, and you have to accept it or you have to deny it, knowing the law, right? And a lot of the people that I work with end up choosing accepting the bad, right? And that's why they end up seeking help, right? Because they just want, they just want faster results. They want to kind of know what to do and understand things a little bit more, right? So just realize, guys, you are the one that's judging your 3D. It's not me, it's not anyone else, it's you, right? Just like for me, when the 3D is bothering me, I understand that I created it. And I don't focus on how I created it or why I created it. I just understand I created it, right? And I can always see how if I go back. But the thing that's really important is to understand is this doesn't have to be permanent. And the faster I begin to start changing my beliefs, I start changing how I feel about that problem in my life regarding that situation, the faster I'm going to get the result. And it feels good to think about the result. It feels good to think about having it. And therefore, I continue to return to that. I think about it all the time, right? And, just like I tell people, if I want a car, a specific car, I'm going to pretty much accept that I already have it. I'm going to feel the relief of it, right? I'm going to have that conviction, that knowing that it's done. And every time I think about that car, yes, I'm aware I don't have it in my 3D, but I'm aware that by returning to the identity of having that car and feeling whatever it would feel like to be the owner of that car, I am in essence bringing it to me in my 3D reality. Because remember, her creation is finished. And I talk about that all the time. In almost every video, I mention that creation is finished. And it's to get it through your guys' head that everything is already existing. All those realities where you have your solutions instead of the problems that you've manifested exists. And if you understand that what you want already exists and all that's left for you to do it in order to experience on the outside is to experience it on the inside first. It's about understanding that your priority, your world number one, is the thing that you should be focusing on. So if you want money, your job is to start feeling the relief of having that money already. That is how you bring the events to you into your life that lead you to that money. That's how you get, you cross that bridge, right? If you want an SP, you have to stop looking at them as single and stop looking at yourself as single, right? Because that's your self-concept. That's your set of beliefs that you have. You have to start viewing them as yours already. How would you feel if you got them back, right? How would you feel if right now you were the man or the woman that got the thing that they wanted the most, right? Whether it's you just received it now, whether it's you remembering you got it a week ago or a month ago or a year ago. It doesn't matter, but it all means the end. All those lead you to the end. So just remember, guys, it's about understanding that you already are the one that has your desires. You already are the one that is past that problem. But if you continue to look at those problems and let them bother you, you are in essence, as I mentioned earlier, watering that with your watering can. Because remember, you are a gardener and you are planting seeds throughout your whole day, whether you know it or not. And your job is to return and water those seeds that you want to manifest, right? You have to give consent to those seeds. And the way that you give consent is by simply accepting that they are already yours, accepting that you are the one that has them. And instead, if you are accepting the negative 3D, you're accepting the lack of movement, you're accepting the person hasn't changed or you haven't got the money you want, guess what you're doing? You are in essence watering that seed and you're allowing it to grow. And that's why I repeat that to you guys all the time, because it's so important to understand that you are the one that can choose how everything goes forward, right? I know that in our 3D minds, it looks like we're things are the present, future, or past, right? And I know that a lot of you guys already understand time, so I don't have to go into it, but just recognize that if you look at it from the 3D sense of, okay, what I'm gonna experience in the future of my timeline is something that I have to bring into my reality now in my inner world, my world number one, priority one, right? Then That's all I have to be doing. And the more I identify with my inside, knowing that my inside gets pushed out, right, then it makes more sense to, hey, even though this thing bothers me out here, all this out here is bothering me, I don't have to feel bad about it. I can acknowledge that it's there, but I don't have to feel bad about it because I'm the one that judges. I'm the one that chooses how I feel about my life. So if you realize that you're the one in charge, that you're the one in control of your mind, then you realize, okay, I don't have to be afraid. And the more you practice being indifferent to your 3D and instead giving yourself, whatever it is you desire within and returning to that realization, then the faster things are going to change for you. And that's how you build the habit. That's why in, The Power of Awareness, Neville talks about how to pretty much change your self-concept, how to change your life, how to manifest things, right? He explains that it's not about the length of time that you hold a feeling, it's about how frequently you're returning to it. And if you're returning to the realization that you already have the thing that you want, you are in essence building, the habit, right? And even Joe Dispenza kind of covers this in his own way, but he discusses it on a scientific level. But the same thing applies. Like, he's not wrong when he discusses it. It's just he talks about it scientifically instead of spiritually, right? And he's 100% correct, right? And I know that he was correct because when I started my journey, way before I found him, I was already doing the things that he was even mentioning, right? About bringing your your future experience, as he says, to your inner reality now. And technically, that's what you're doing, right? What you're going to experience in the future timeline of your human life, it has to be experienced now, here, right? In the present moment. Technically, everything is now, but it's just, like I mentioned, it's the way we look at time as humans, right? And if it helps you, then look at it that way. But remember, it's about understanding that what you are doing on the inside has to be experienced on the outside. So if you are feeling just loved, let's just say loved, no specific person involved, but just loved, you're feeling spoiled, you're feeling loved, you're feeling taken care of, you're feeling great, right? Then the 3D, has to give you experiences that then mimic and reflect that feeling, that conviction, that belief, right? And the way that you get that to reflect is you return to the state. That's how you change your self-concept. You return to it. It's like Neville says in The Power of Awareness, it's how frequently you return to that identity, that person, that state, which then makes it a habit, and he says natural, right? Which makes it natural, right? And that's what a habit is. It's just something natural to you. So if you wish to change your self-concept and you wish to change your life, you have to start changing what state you return to throughout your day. And that's the fun part. It's just like a little game, right? How many times can I fulfill myself today in a fun way that doesn't feel forced, right? And for me personally, I find it fun. I remember the amount of times, or at least on average, at the end of 24 hours, and then I'm like, okay, and then I try to beat that number the next day, right? If it's something I really want. And to me, it's like a fun way to kind of change myself, to change my beliefs, right? It builds the habit of catching my awareness, being the person that doesn't have it, and then accepting that I already have it. It's like I make that little switch, and that's all I'm doing is I'm just flicking that switch over and over and over and over, and that's, how I become who I am, right? So I want you guys to realize that. It's nothing crazy. I don't want you guys thinking that you have to pretend your 3D is different. I don't want you guys thinking that you have to start being convinced that your outer world has changed. You can still look at the most worst things in the world and how bad your 3D is, but remember, it's no one's forcing you to feel bad about it. No one's forcing you to identify with it, right? It's those moments that you have to decide to filter those thoughts through the awareness of being who you are, right? Of being an aspect of the creator, of having this power within you. And when you realize, okay, I don't have to worry about this 3D because I know it's gonna change, because I know that I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to return to the state of having it over and over. And I know by doing this, it's going to become natural, as Neville says. And once it becomes natural, everything's going to come flooding fast. And it's up to you guys to start making that natural to you. So it's not about looking at your 3D and worshiping those problems as God, as your God. It's about realizing I am God to my problems. And when you realize that you are this giant to your problems, they seem to shrink, right? They become small. And it puts you in the perspective of being the creator. And once you're in that, what I call God mode, it makes it so much easier to then fulfill yourself. It makes it easier to accept who you are. But if you're in this negative state and then you're trying to convince yourself, oh, I have this now. This is who I am. It's not going to feel real. It's not going to feel authentic, right? That's why I tell people all the time, use logic, use the rules of the law, right? The core concepts, all these things, and the mechanics of how it works. And then really ask yourself, does it make sense to feel this way, knowing everything I know? And the answer is going to be no, right? If God wouldn't feel the way that you feel, then why should you feel the way that you feel regarding your problems that are bothering you, right? And that's a gentle reminder that, hey, you're just being human. You can only feel bad if you are looking at something from a limited human lens. And I tell that to all the people I work with. The only reason you feel those negative feelings, emotions, whatever it may be, and you have that negative conviction, it's because you are looking at things from a perspective of, I am a human and I cannot change this and I feel stuck and I feel powerless, like it's happening to me. But in reality, when you take a step back, right, and you start observing it, just like a coach would watch, their players or their fighter and observe from the outside, they see everything, right? They would understand, okay, this doesn't have to feel bad. This doesn't have to be forever. This is temporary, right? And when you start observing as the creator and you realize that nothing can harm you, that nothing can intimidate you unless you allow it, you start realizing, hey, this scary thing isn't so scary because I know that it's only temporary as long as I stop giving it awareness. But if you're not willing to stop giving your negative 3D awareness and instead start giving awareness to the solutions, then of course it won't change. But if you're willing to do the opposite and to start putting your awareness where it should be on the end result, then you're gonna get everything you want, okay guys? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I try to keep this one a little bit shorter, and I promise the next one will be just as interesting, if not more. And I should be uploading one sooner than later, actually. I have a lot that I kind of want to put out for you guys that I have recorded and I'm going to record as well. So all I ask for you guys is if you made it this far, just hit that like if you learned something, if you enjoyed the video, and thank you very much for all the kind words and all the kind love and support that you guys give me. I appreciate every single one of you and all my clients that I work with. I love every single one of you. You guys are a pleasure. And for just the viewers, I love you all very much as well. So thank you very much for everything you guys have given me and the support, and I appreciate all you guys so much. And I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys soon, okay guys?